like to point out this isn't about left or right. And the globalists hijack the environmental movement and distract from all the serious things that are going on. And that's why you're going to find people from all different stripes, all different colors, all different religions exposing the carbon fraud. And again, the devastating news, and I want to get his view of the propaganda on the streets in Copenhagen, the people he's interviewed. We'll get other reports from him if he can in the days to come. But in this short interview, the incredible news of the secret treaty, the addendum in the London Guardian that basically ends the UN power, gives the IMF and World Bank total power, double the carbon taxes on the third world. They were suckered into getting behind this. Now they learn it's really about destroying their development by the eugenicist. So this is so diabolical and just off the charts important. So, Patrick, good to have you here with us today from Copenhagen.
It's good to be with you, Alex.
You've got the floor. Give us your report on the propaganda, what you're seeing, who you've interviewed, what it's like to see all this information coming out, the whole conference in deep trouble, not just from ClimateGate, but now the third world finding out it is a eugenics operation.
Well, the first thing I'll just say is you notice it straight away when we got into town. Plastered all over Copenhagen in billboards and public places are the words Copenhagen. And, you know, in America, you've seen that word hope a lot in the last sort of 18 months. Well, it's all over here in Copenhagen. And I think that ironically kind of sums up the sort of desperation that, you know, they're trying to pass this treaty. And there's one scandal after another coming out in the last couple of weeks. And it seems to be the Danish text leak that you probably read about is being talked about. And I believe, as well as others, that this might very well be one of the final nails in the coffin of this treaty that they're trying to sign.
Absolutely. So the press reports are accurate that people are freaking out when they learn this is really an IMF World Bank taxation grab.
It's only reinforcing what a lot of people already suspected. And if you've been following this issue and you've been watching what the financial institutions have been doing, and banks like J.P. Morgan have actually purchased carbon offset companies, like one in Oxford, I think it's called Carbon Fund, is wholly owned by J.P. Morgan. So, you know, the investment banks and Goldman Sachs, etc., they've positioned themselves to ride this carbon bubble as far as it goes until it pops. And guess who's going to pick up the tab when it pops? And I think we've learned from all the other bubbles that's going to be us. That's the plan all along, and I think it's really good that this did come out because it's kind of exposing what's the driving force behind this green movement. It's not activists, it's not environmentalists, it's big money, it's people like George Soros, it's people like Al Gore, and the political apparatchik that sort of is used by the financial institutions is a tool. But really the force behind it is about centralization of control, power, rationing energy, charging more for it. These are all the things that are going to come out of a Copenhagen Treaty. The best thing that can happen with this conference is that nothing happens.
Well, those are really great points. I mean, give us the feel. I mean, it's one thing to see the billboards with the little girls saying, "Please don't let me drown," and big billboards of polar bears saying, "Please don't let me drown, I can't swim," and just ridiculous billboards of penguins saying, "Help us." I mean, just asinine 2-year-old level propaganda that's designed for a snail or an amoeba. And then the different people you've been interviewing, Lord Monckton, what's happening there, and where you think this whole attempt at establishing a global corporate dictatorship is going.
Well, the first, we went down to the UN's compound, which is really what it is. It's a giant compound just outside of the city. And the first thing we noticed is it's basically a cross between a gigantic green trade fair and if you've ever been to a evangelist conference, if you put those two things together, that's pretty much what COP15 is at the official UN site. So there's plenty of mainstream media that are going to cover what's going on there, and for us there was no need to be down there because every other 5,000 other journalists are covering the same thing. So we went to the meeting organized by Common Sense, or Climate Sense, sorry, and Lord Christopher Monckton, one of the chairs of that, as is CFACT, an organization you're probably familiar with. You've had Mark Moreno on your show in the past. He's a great advocate, great speaker about this issue. And it's, there's just a fantastic lineup of speakers there, from Dr. Nils Axel Morner, sea-level expert. We interviewed him today. We interviewed Ian Plimer, who wrote the best-selling book Heaven and Earth. He's from Australia. Very animated, very articulate, fantastic. But none of these guys will be allowed a platform over at the summit for the UN. And so we, at this meeting, have invited anybody to come and listen and observe. But over there, invitations from the people that we have are not extended. So it's kind of a lopsided discussion.
And Copenhagen is also the official UN event, as you know, but for those that may not, any even mainstream media that's been critical of them are refused. You have to agree with them to be able to attend, to give people an idea of just how authoritarian and dictatorial these ghouls are.
Sure. The UN declared Copenhagen as a UN territory during these 2 weeks here. How official that is or unofficial is, you can debate, but you've got half of Denmark's police force currently in the city. There's a group called Climate Camp who's put up on their website publicly that next Wednesday they're planning to storm the UN compound and occupy it and forcibly remove anybody that's in their way, because they want to talk about real solutions to climate change. And I find the whole thing completely comical, because everybody inside that conference and all these people who are going to storm it all still subscribe to man-made global warming theory. And,
to explain how this works, the foundations on record bring in the radicals to tear stuff up so they can then attack any other protesters and set the precedent to shut down free speech and free assembly globally. And they've caught them all over the world, police staging this or hiring these foundation thugs. B, by them acting like fools, that will make the people pushing for the carbon taxes look more reasonable. So it creates a false extreme. Do you want the communists that want total control, or just the loving banks that will reasonably tax you?
Sure, they're loving to frame this in a left versus right issue. On the left you have activists and hippies and anarchists, and on the right you have big oil and big business who are apparently funding skeptics. And really, this isn't a left-right issue at all. And when you go and you meet some of these people, scientists, economists that we've talked to, they've got no partisan interest whatsoever. They're not getting a penny from big oil. Every single one of the people and speakers at this conference have come there on their own dime. They paid for their own travel at their own expense. If it was funded by big oil, this would be in the Marriott downtown of the SAS Radisson. Instead, we're in some back conference, small little room in Christiana, which is right outside the hippie district.
Meanwhile, all the big oil company executives are there in Copenhagen calling for stronger global taxes because they're owned by the big banks that are going to run this.
Sure. I mean, it's a giant slush fund is what it is, and that's evidenced by the Danish tax leak. The World Bank is going to be handling the slush. So, and the other thing is the sort of desperate political moves by people in the U.S. who are desperate to ram through cap-and-trade legislation in 2010. Okay, and the reason part of this Danish tax leak is very revealing, because there's only two things that have kept hardline opponents of Kyoto from supporting Kyoto. One is they don't like the fact that the rich countries have to shoulder the burden for emissions. Okay, check that box. The next box is they don't like the fact that the UN is handling the money. So in these Danish tax leak, there's two things. The World Bank can handle the money, and they're going to stick it to the developing world to cap their emissions. So they thought they could, by appeasing these two problems with right-wing opponents of Kyoto, they could ram through cap and trade. But it's obviously backfired in their face. It's invading all sorts of areas. They're going to see opposition from places where they haven't anticipated it. And it goes to show that a lot of these political elites are not very bright. They're very clever, but they're not very bright.
Well, what's happening is people are leaking this in the age of the Internet, and it's confirmed to be accurate. The London Guardian was leaked the information. And the third world knows it's the IMF and World Bank, and reading it, it's actually both of them, but mainly the World Bank, as you said. They know those are the groups even worse than the UN, with loan sharking rates feeding on their countries. So that's why the third world, the news was showing the delegates crying, going, we came here thinking we were finally going to get money for our starving people, and also some money for ourselves. A lot of them are corrupt, like government is, period. And now they're finding out it's a total bait and switch. But we already knew that in Fall of the Republic, folks, as we were reading their documents. This is private corporate dictatorship. I cannot say that enough, taxing the very air we breathe.